Hi there, this is Matt with State of Flux here to kickstart my Pixar retrospective series with Toy Story. The hope is that I can buzz through all these, I think there's 22, maybe 23 Pixar films before the new one comes out in June, which would be Elemental. I believe it's June. It could be July, it could be earlier. We'll find out. But anyway, I'm going to be starting by talking about Toy Story. Now, this is a phenomenal movie, and an incredibly important one in the same way that Snow White was, in that this was the first first recognized computer-generated animated film that was feature length. Lucasfilm Animated and later Pixar had been working for a long time making these short little videos, short little vignettes that were fully computer animated and whatnot for many years prior, about 10 years prior to the release of Toy Story. But Toy Story was the culmination of all that work. And many of those short films you can see on the Pixar animated short film series that was released on DVD back in around 2004, 2005. They're really quite good, but this is the culmination of that work. It's an impressive feat, an important feat for cinema, made all the better by the fact that just like Snow White, it is really that good. The film itself is incredibly strong, fantastic work. It is funny, it is poignant and dramatic when it needs to be. It hits you in the feels in unexpected ways, especially if you were a child at the time when the film was released, who played with toys and action figures and stuff like that, just as I did, and very much had built a headcanon for myself that my toys would play with each other and interact when I wasn't there, continuing the stories that I had made up. And to see that represented on the big screen was incredibly important. I was in the theater that December when it was released in 1995, and I was in awe of what I was watching, because this is the movie that hit just kind of at the right time. I was 9 or 10 when it was released, and it just really hit home very well. And I was totally into like the Space Ranger kind of thing. So Buzz really hit hard for me. I was like, oh man, this character is cool, and that is an action figure that I absolutely would have owned had he existed. And after the film came out, his was the toy that I wanted to buy. As an adult viewing the thing, I very much resonate with Woody. Woody is the character that I think is the best character in all of Toy Story. He is great, but the script is so strong that every character, even in, like, this movie is 81 minutes, this is a sprint of a movie, yet scenes allow themselves to be prolonged. It doesn't feel like it's a sprint. The scenes have weight and heft to them. Even if their weight and heft is in their comedy, every scene kind of matters. And the film is so good at establishing every character. You know every toy and their purpose with very limited screen time. You don't spend very much time with Slinky Dog, but you know Slinky Dog is Woody's best friend. That isn't, Andy. You get to know Andy really well without really spending very much time with Andy. And obviously Buzz and Woody are very well-drawn, well-established characters. But every character, and I love the T-Rex is great. Every character is so well drawn that really what this film does is it's so good because not only do you have well-drawn, well-developed characters, you have the building blocks there to continue the story later, and sure enough, they would as time passed. But everything in this film is really quite extraordinary. But it all comes down to character, and that's where Pixar has its strongest strength, is it's a character-driven franchise, or movie studio, rather. Um, all of their works largely come from character-first perspective. This is something that the Marvel Universe, the MCU, does as well. They're character-first. Stories are supplemental, and stories, if you break them down, are pretty simplistic. It's the characters that matter, and the complexity of emotion that they are confronted with throughout each story. And that's what makes Pixar interesting and compelling. And the fact that they are not afraid to shy away from topics that some people would consider too adult for children. Now, I will say that sometimes in doing that, they lose the child's attention, and there are a couple great Pixar movies that are not easily digestible for kids, but as they grow, they will learn to appreciate them and find that maybe some of those movies are their gateway into cinema, like true cinema. Heck, Pixar even has a film that's been put into the Criterion Collection this past year, which is really, really cool. But Toy Story itself was the one that started it all, and I think honestly is one of still their best movies. Probably top 5, certainly top 10. After I'm done with like my whole retrospective of Pixar, I'll give you my ranking of where I think each film lay. But as of now, this was my favorite film of 1995. Like, even looking back at all the films that I've seen since then, Toy Story is the hard one to beat. It is a perfect movie, a near perfect movie. Maybe that some of those animations don't hold up well, and that's true. There's certain shots that you can definitely tell we're not ready, or screen ready, but they had to get the movie out and released. The scene specifically I'm thinking of is when they're at Sid's house and the character's looking at his shoe that says Andy. The floor beyond it is not rendered whatsoever, but your focus is on that shoe and Andy written on it, and so it matters very little. And it speaks volumes as to how good of the movie it is that it took me until this viewing today to recognize that that shot was an incomplete shot. But anyway, I digress. I really enjoy this movie. It's really fun, really funny. Excellent screenplay by Joss Whedon and company. Joss Whedon wrote the screenplay, and he said in an interview in around 2005 when Serenity was coming out that the reason that screenplay was the writers contributing to that screenplay was as long as it was because he had been burned by Speed. He essentially wrote the film Speed, but the person who wrote the first draft of Speed took sole writing credit. Joss wanted to make sure that never happened again, and so everybody who even contributed a line or a concept got the screenplay credit, and he said that it's very much Lasseter's movie. Lasseter had the idea of the film. Several drafts were written, and Joss just took them and compiled them and wrote the screenplay with which the film was animated from. Very few ideas are actually his, but all the dialogue is. And that's this movie was one of the few animated films prior to the Best Animated Film category to actually get an Academy Award nomination, which was for Best Screenplay. But yeah, the screenplay in this film is just so tight. I love the characters. I love that Sid is honestly the truest kid in that he's playing with his toys as they ought to be, or not necessarily as they ought to be played with, but in the most imaginative kind of way. If you have a broken toy, why not fix it and create like this cannibalized version of a toy and stuff like that. Yet he's vilified in that. I have a little problems with that. However, he also is incredibly abusive to the toys, and I think Andy plays with the toys as they are more meant to be played with. I digress. I love this film. It's my favorite film of 1995, one of my favorite Pixar movies in general, and I'll be coming at you next week with a review for A Bug's Life. So thanks for watching, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and let me know what you think of Toy Story in the comments down below. Has this one aged out of its irrelevancy? I certainly don't think so. I think this, much like Snow White, is every bit as good as it was the day that it came out. And maybe the animation style we've moved past, but that doesn't change the quality of the movie itself. This was the building blocks of Pixar and the building blocks to a really phenomenal animated film franchise. And we will discuss those moving forward. But anyway, thanks for watching. Peace.